If you would, sir, who are you? Where do you live? What kind of work you do?
My name is John Lee Dumas. I live in Puerto Rico for the last 4 years, which is home of the 4% tax, as well as the beautiful, bright sun. So I can completely power my house via solar, which is amazing. And since 2012, I've been running a podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire, where I interview the world's most successful entrepreneurs. And I'm currently over 2,600 interviews in the bag. So it's been quite a journey.
Quite the journey. You are absolutely the poster child for successful podcast development. And thank you, sir, for taking me on as one of your children of podcasting. So,
You've made me proud, Ron.
oh yeah, I don't know about that yet, but I'm over 1,000 of my downloads, so I'm getting there, a little
Awesome.
inch by inch, you know. So yeah, just starting out, man, just starting out. When I get to the million, then you could call me awesome. Then I'll be in your league, sir. So. All right. So thank you very much. Okay. So why did you move to clean energy, John?
So I moved to clean energy for a lot of reasons. Number one, I just know it's the right thing to do. I mean, listen, global warming is happening. It crushes me when I see, like what's happening, especially like up on the polar ice caps where they're shrinking every single day. And when you combine that with like how now the sun doesn't bounce off as much whiteness up there as it used to be, and it's just exacerbating the problem. It's like this exponential thing that like literally when I think about it too directly, it just honestly makes me sad. And it's pretty hard to make me sad. So like just didn't want to contribute to dirty energy. And, I actually made a very sizable investment in a company called Biomass Green Fuels down here in Puerto Rico about a year and a half ago. And it's working out very well. We're actually taking like all the carbon emissions from land dumps and we're turning it into clean energy that we're then repurposing throughout the islands. So, it's doing a number of great things. It's way taking down the pollution from landfills by 90+%. And then it's taking all of that, monoxide offset and turning it into clean energy as well. So I love the fact that I did that for my house. I love the fact that I'm investing my money that I'm earning as an entrepreneur into programs like that that's going to make Puerto Rico a better place, not to mention, the world a better place. And, as I'm sitting here right now, I'm looking, at my son coming in, powering my house. As you can see, it was quite a good solar day here in Puerto Rico. We've got a nice little arc there with a couple clouds that came in, but for the most part, I produced 71.2 kilowatt hours of power just today.
Boy, isn't that amazing? All right, so you invested off on landfills, which is a major issue in Puerto Rico because basically they have all these landfills that are going to close and no place to put the garbage, and it's just amazing. And now you're recapturing some of that, which is awesome. Secondly, though, what you did personally is you put a solar system on your house. So how big is the solar? And obviously it's producing well. And was it just because you had this environmental concern, or I think there might have been one or two other reasons too, right?
I mean, I wanted to save some money too, but you don't save money with these things probably ever if you're really being honest with yourselves, because it's going to take me like 8 years to offset the $56,000 investment, and that's at a minimum. And honestly, by then it's like I'm probably going to be upgrading to like the next greatest solar that's available then. So I'll be like investing another $50,000 then. So it's honestly like, on one hand, you can like say it's for the financial reasons, but if you really do the numbers and the math, it's not like this over compelling reason. It's honestly just because, like, number one, I like being self-sufficient. I like being off the grid. I like not relying on Puerto Rico's, very incompetent power system and setup we have here. We have hurricanes that come through, and these solar panels are like bolted on the roof. Like, these guys aren't going anywhere. You asked about the system. We use these N-phase micro inverters for the panels. So I have 41 panels up on my roof. I have 3 Tesla Powerwall batteries in my garage. And that essentially keeps me pretty much off the grid. So, if I have like a lot of guests over, or we're doing like a lot of power inducing things like laundry and hot showers all day and things like that, I may need to tap back into the grid a little bit for some power, but it's very seamless on how it works.
And so you have solar with batteries, and then you also have for your air conditioning system, you did something with your AC, right? You got these mini splits, right?
Yes. So I went with all these inverters around my house. And so like right now, we have a 5,500 square foot home, but only my room, which is pretty small here, and Kate's office on any given day will be using any air conditioners. The rest of the house doesn't get hit by AC at all. So we're really able to just use these inverters, in the rooms that we're actually in and using. So they don't, take much energy to run, on the cool, or you can even use the dry level, which we found works really well. It kind of just takes the humidity out of the air and keeps things cool. So we've gotten really nifty around those things.
Fantastic. And during power outages now, how long you can go basically without the grid pretty much for when everybody else is down? You've got power, right?
I mean, in a perfect world, if like we don't have a ton of like rainstorms and cloud cover on any given day, like we're pretty much able to be self-sufficient, because fully charged, our 3 power walls will last about, anywhere from like 14 to 18 hours. And that's essentially, when the sun is down. So when the sun goes down at like 6, we're essentially switching to battery power. And by 8 o'clock the next day, which is 14 hours later, the sun's back up and we're able to pretty much run our house off of that. And then of course, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, we're producing like 11 to 12 kilowatts, and our house is taking like 2 or 3, which is then charging the batteries back up. So in a perfect world, we're kind of able to make the night gap and wake up the next morning, and the sun will be up by the time, our batteries get down to like 15 or 10%. But again, if we have a couple of days of cloud cover and we don't get that good of a sun outputs, then we're going to have to tap back into the grid a little bit. Or, we do have our backup, which is our generator.
And when you do overproduce and you've charged your batteries, does Puerto Rico have net metering? So you spin your meter backwards that way, or?
Yeah, just the incompetent, corrupt Puerto Rico that we live in. I don't want to talk too badly because, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are trying really hard, but I've got this system installed in February. And by law, I'm supposed to have net metering in my house within 30 days. And now it's been, 9 months? Not a word.
Yeah, it is COVID season too, right? But okay.
Oh, but they love that for, anything they can use it as an excuse. Oh, there was a hurricane 3 years ago. Oh, COVID. It's just like, do your job.
Yeah, it is crazy down there. I know. I tried to do some stuff down there. So God bless you. So, okay. So how did you do it? Did you go out to bid? Did you just decide you had to do somebody? How did you wind up doing it? What was your process there?
Yeah, fortunately, there was a company down here called Solar Now, and they had successfully installed 3 houses on my neighborhood street. And all 3 of the house installs they did were by friends of mine. So I was able to have conversations with them, and they all spoke very highly. So each job was successfully done, was professionally done. So I had them come give a quote. I had another company give a quote that actually came out a little bit lower, but not low enough where I was like, I'm going to go with the company that I really trust, that really has great recommendations and referrals. So I went with Solar Now, and they did a great job on the install.
Fantastic. Yeah, they say that actually it's not the amount of income you have, it's not the amount of education you have, it's whether or not you know somebody else that did solar that is the determining factor about whether you do it, because then you feel comfortable doing it. It's really amazing, right?
So isn't it as exciting with that reality being that with so many more people doing solar, that now it's just this exponential thing?
Exactly. Everyone's doing it. It's just like podcasting. When nobody did it at first, a few people did it. Now half the country is doing it. It's amazing. So yeah,
oh man,
like that, right? So that's okay. Good. Incentives. What kind of incentives did you get? Do you know?
So again, we have like incentives that my accountant is fully aware of, that we are going to be implementing. But that's kind of one of the things when it comes to moving to an island like Puerto Rico and you're only paying 4% tax. I'm almost like, I kind of feel bad squeezing out other incentives because I'm already just like basically just completely living here for essentially tax free. So, my accountant's on that, but at the end of the day, like, we're not doing too much.
Yeah. Hopefully you got the 26% federal tax credit, right? You still pay federal U.S. taxes or no? You don't pay the federal taxes there either?
No federal taxes in Puerto Rico.
No wonder it's 8 years. No wonder it's 8 years or longer for you. You don't get the 30. Most people get 30 or 26% federal tax credit this year. Plus there's in New York State a $5,000 tax credit. Plus there's utility incentives or NYSERDA incentives in New York where they'll pay you so much per watt. So with no incentives, you're still got an 8 year or so return on your investment, which ain't bad, really.
It's not bad. It's not bad. And that's one of the things is like those incentives would be amazing. And that obviously cuts down that, get your money back in a lot faster time frame. But the thing about Puerto Rico is, and I think you probably know this, you said you've done some stuff down here. It's one of the most expensive places in the world for electricity. Like it's insane.
Yeah.
Like I want to say it's like 23 or 26 cents for yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's almost as much as New York.
Yeah.
Not as much as Hawaii, though, just so you know. But yeah, mostly Puerto Rico is oil fired, which is why
Is Hawaii in the 30s? What are they at?
yeah, they're like higher than U20s. They're number one in the U.S. But Puerto Rico. Actually, I don't know if they count Puerto Rico as part of the U.S. It's like
yeah, because it's a territory, so they might not.
I don't know, but yeah, it's a great question. So okay, so lessons learned. What would you do differently if you did anything different?
Honestly, like I feel like I really learned a lot of lessons that my neighbors went through, and they gave me those recommendations. So I just made sure to implement all of those things. And I'm honestly really happy with the result. I really don't have any regrets or no lessons learned. Yeah, I'm really feeling good about the whole setup.
Cool. And what were your neighbors' lessons that you took advantage of, if I may?
Like really focusing on like more southern facing, like they definitely were able to realize that like, hey, and this is things that solar now, like was able to kind of tell us, but like hearing it from them, like really did help me as well. So like, I was basically like trying to do one part of my house that I probably would have forced, but because it was like a northern facing, like kind of like slant. And my neighbors are just like, you'll just kind of be wasting your panels there. Like they won't produce nearly to what, you need to make it worthwhile and all these different things. So mostly just kind of positioning type of things that really, number one, made my acceptance very easy. Because unfortunately, we do live in a gated community where you have to get everything approved by the homeowners association before you can slap solar panels like on your roof and stuff like that. So that was probably my biggest takeaway was the positioning of the panels.
Okay. And just for future reference, mine are actually east and west facing, so it's not twice as critical as people would like to say, but it's definitely incremental. So
yeah, and that's what mine are. Mine are south, east, and west, just not north. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so what's next?
Good question. So, one thing that we're doing next, and I am pretty excited about, is I'm putting a 1,000-gallon water receptacle right in my side yard right here that's going to catch rainwater. And so we're going to utilize all of the rainwater that comes in, which we get pretty much down here in Puerto Rico, to like water our garden, our plants, and potentially for drinking water as well. Like we might even pipe it in and start using it for showers and drinking and things along those lines, using like infrared filtration and things along those lines, and UV light filtration and things like that.
Great. And do you have a solar hot water heater?
I got one quoted to get installed, and I even specifically, I could have gone with 43 panels on my house, but I only went with 41 to leave enough gap to install a solar water heater. And honestly, like the company came out, they're called Universal Solar, and they just gave me a pretty crappy quote. They never followed up. They just didn't feel professional to me. So I kind of put it on the side burner, and like it's something I definitely have the space purposefully to install at a future date. But right now we don't have that installed.
Okay, great. Just FYI, you're exactly right. The issue is the operations and maintenance of it. The installation is pretty simple. It's a great technology. Most of the world, before they start burning fossil fuels, they let the sun heat up their water. In your situation, it makes total sense. But the installation is critical that it gets done right. So having a professional do it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about the electric car, John? The other third of your carbon, man.
So I don't have a car. So that's one thing.
No car. No car in heaven. What, in Puerto Rico? How do you get around?
Well, Kate has a car, so like she has her car, and that's what she uses, and it's a Hyundai Santa Fe, so it's not an electric car, obviously. But that is something that if we were going to get another car, it definitely would be just trading in the Santa Fe and getting the electric car. We did about 2 years ago trade in our gas golf carts for an electric golf cart. So there's that.
Perfect. Just FYI. So right now, the Nissan Leaf is the only electric car that does this, but other vehicles will be doing it next year. And with the Nissan Leaf, if you get extra hardware and software to go with it, not only can you charge it, and for 98% of most people's trips, so less than 100 miles. So I think Puerto Rico, I don't even think you can go 200 miles, right, in a day. So
you have to go around the whole island, yeah.
That's it, right? So you plug it into an overnight wall socket, regular socket overnight, and that's it. You got all the charge that you need to go around the whole island, whether it's a Nissan Leaf or a Chevy Bolt or a Tesla or whatever else. else. There's 50 different electric vehicles out there now. But the thing with the Leaf is this, is that next year with the hardware and software, you could use it as an emergency backup source to integrate with your power wall so that when the grid goes down, you would have 5 extra days of power just from the Nissan Leaf. Something to think about.
And
right?
that works with the Tesla power.
You have to make sure that the integration is there in terms of the software, but somebody down there should be able to help you figure that out. So,
cool.
All right, we've got 1 more
5
minute,
days.
right?
Sweet.
Yeah, pretty cool, right? Depending upon your usage. All right, last thing, since we got time. WTF, weather time, fun, or fudge? Tell us an extreme weather story that you lived through and whether or not it was exciting or scary or whatever else, if you have one, please.
An extreme weather story.
Extreme weather, yeah.
1997, I'm living in Maine, and we have the ice storm of the century. I mean, there was like twigs that are like much smaller than my pinky that had like ice that thick around them. So like, telephone wires were snapping everywhere. People in my community were without power for like 14 days, which in like a first world country is like pretty crazy, especially like Maine, like southern Maine, only an hour outside of Boston, like 14 days without power is pretty crazy. And I just remember like, you could not get out in the roads. You couldn't drive. The ice was like so thick that we would just be like walking down the middle of Main Street, like in the middle of the day, and there's just no cars out. It was like this. It felt like this Iceland movie that you were like on this different planet. It was definitely crazy. I also did, quote unquote, live through. It was my house that lived through Hurricane Maria, which is, essentially a Category 5 hurricane back in 2017. I was off the island for that though, so I didn't like personally experience it, but my poor house did. And, it took a little while to get back to normal.
Yeah, so those extreme weather events that are getting worse, and in the winter now it's polar vortices basically creating these extreme weather events. Obviously, a good chunk of the country right now is burning out in the west, and it's happening
and like
all over
so
the
many
world.
hurricanes this year. They're like already get T or W or something for named hurricanes. Like they're expecting over 25 this year, which is double normal.
And the intensity is increasing as well. So, gosh, thank you so much, Mr. John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneurs on Fire. Any last words of wisdom there, sir, for...
Stay clean, stay green.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Be well, John.
Adios,
Thanks
brother.
again, man. Have a great one. Take care.